Because of you guys, I ended up watching Capone, starring Tom Hardy. Well, at least 50% of you said you wanted me to watch it, and the other 50% said you could pass on it. Well, maybe I should have listened to that other 50%. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today I'm taking a look at director and writer Josh Trank's latest movie, Capone, starring Tom Hardy. And yes, it centers around Al Capone, the famous, well, infamous mob boss. I mean, he's not a very nice guy, but this deals with a 48-year-old Al Capone who's on the decline in terms of his physical and mental health. He was serving prison time for tax evasion, but they exiled him to Florida where he could go and live since he was deemed not a threat anymore because of his neurosyphilis, which is a condition that affects the mind and makes you paranoid, and basically you lose control of a lot of things, especially your bladder. And trust me, the movie shows you a lot of crap, pun intended. But before I get into what I liked about the movie, because there are some things I liked and what I really didn't love about Capone, if this is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James. Now if you're wondering who that is, that's me, and I love talking all about movies. So if you like what you hear and what you see, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel. Consider turning on your notifications too, because guys, it's been a busy past couple weeks and I'm excited to drop more content. Don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. Also guys, in the comments below, get loud. Did you see the movie? Do you like Capone? I mean, maybe I just fall on the other side of this because I didn't necessarily love the movie, but let me know what you guys think about the film below. And if you missed it, I dropped my spoiler-free and spoiler-filled reviews of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Kimmy versus the Reverend. That's also on Netflix, so you can stream it there. You can find those reviews in the description below. Okay guys, I kind of set the stage a little bit right with this movie. You have to temper your expectations. This isn't Goodfellas, Casino. This is not your razzle-dazzle big mob movie. This is literally Tom Hardy portraying a 48-year-old Al Capone on the decline of his life. You know, he still lives with his wife and he's got some of his sons around him, family and friends, but he's really in a bad place, especially with the feds still hot on his tail because they have information that is leading them to believe he stored away $10 million somewhere and they want to get that money, I guess, and do whatever they're going to do with it. So he's paranoid. Capone is definitely not in a good place mentally and he thinks everyone's out to get him. And that's where we find Al Capone and where the biopic begins. Now, I do think that there are some redeeming qualities about this film. I love that director and writer Josh Trank was able to really get his version of the film he wanted. I mean, this is a big win for a lot of screenwriters and directors who might have a lot of things cut on the cutting floor. Now, where there's some scenes that needed to be trimmed down in this film, absolutely, but I do love that his unique voice was found in some really important scenes here in the film. And the film really is shot well for the most part. I love the cinematography. I don't necessarily think that it was given the biggest production budget, but it didn't need that. So there were some scenes that you could tell were just like, you know, shot one, shot two. There wasn't much to it, but I do like the simplicity sometimes. And the ambiguous writing here is actually different as well for a mob movie, because usually everything is right in your face and on the nose, but here it's actually different. You know, you have moments where you're questioning reality or if something is just a fantasy, if it's all in Capone's mind. So it's interesting. Now, of course, everyone's going to ask how Tom Hardy acted in this film. Was he great? Was he lackluster? And he kind of falls in the middle here, because I think that historically, Tom Hardy has turned in some of the best performances I've seen in cinema. He's a great actor and I love him in pretty much anything that he's in. However, his portrayal as Al Capone, kind of on the end of his life here, is a mixed bag for me. Sometimes the accent works well and unfortunately you have to work up to it. Sometimes it is really just distracting and you just can't fall in love with it at all, and it actually takes you out of scenes rather than keeping you immersed in the story. And then there are some moments where he just acts with his eyes, and I think those are some of the strongest moments of acting on his behalf because he doesn't need to say anything and really distract us with his crazy accent here that doesn't necessarily work a lot. He just kind of gives you a performance through his facial features and his movements there, and I think that's actually pretty impressive, and that's the Tom Hardy we know. But Tom Hardy's not even the best actor in this film. I actually think Linda Cardellini, who plays his wife May, is much stronger here because she's not necessarily trying to be over the top, and she's actually able to convey a ton of emotion in some of the stronger scenes in the first half of the film. Unfortunately, her performance is wasted because the rest of this film, after the first maybe 30-40 minutes, really goes downhill. While there are some sequences that I love, and yes, I do like that Blueberry Hill sequence with Louis Armstrong where Tom Hardy is, you know, he's aged. You can tell that Al Capone is not in a good way, but everything around him is basically in his mind. It's a fantasy. He's at this old party. That's kind of neat, but I'm not gonna lie, there are more ridiculous scenes here than memorable scenes for all the right reasons. unfortunately, you find yourself wondering whether or not you're caught in a fantasy yourself, because I couldn't believe what I was watching. And scenes tend to linger some more, and I'm not gonna lie guys, I didn't need to know that much about Al Capone's bladder issues. I get it, Josh Trank painted a very vivid image for a reason, but the thing is, in the beginning of the movie you see him pee himself, and okay, fine, but I don't need to see him poop himself twice. You know what I mean? That's almost too much, and if anything, it just takes you out of the movie entirely. And yeah, sometimes monotonous scenes have a payoff, but the monotony here is not worth any of the wait. I mean, you had Matt Dillon in a wasted performance, and unfortunately there are some other supporting actors that you've seen in different films that actually turn in really good performances usually, and in here they're just misused. And a lot of scenes tend to hit a wall in the second half, and really I was caught saying what the heck for a lot of the wrong reasons. I mean, I thought I was going to be surprised. There were going to be some moments that really made the wait pay off. I mean, again, I waiting for things to build up, but really you start to find out there's no substance, and you find out rather quickly in this film. This is that kind of film where you just want it to finish really fast because it almost is ruining itself even more. I mean, I was at like a 3-star, right, out of 5, and maybe like a 2.5 and then a 2, because you eventually start to realize that there's nothing left in the tank here, and I don't want to see Al Capone in a diaper. I don't necessarily care for a lot of the imagery in the second half, and I just really wish that the film would have ended on a stronger note, kind of how strong it started off. I mean, that's what's crazy to me, is that the beginning of the movie had me intrigued, and then as we go further and further along the storyline, I almost felt like maybe this wasn't a very wise rental. So overall, yeah, I'm really down on Capone. It's definitely not a good film by any means, and I didn't think we needed a biopic about Al Capone himself. He's a bad person that I pretty much had no interest in, other than reading Wikipedia articles every now and then, and maybe we didn't need a biopic after all. This is just not a good film. Again, Linda Cardellini's performance is totally wasted, and unfortunately I don't necessarily think people will see that because they're paying attention to Tom Hardy so much more, but she turns in the most genuine performance throughout this almost 2-hour film. Like I said, there's some promise early on in Capone, and I found myself really intrigued by where Josh Trank was taking this story, but eventually it just doesn't pay off at all. Not only is there a lack of substance, I just think some of these scenes are ridiculous. I mean, Al Capone singing the Cowardly Lion song from The Wizard of Oz, I thought was the most ridiculous the movie would get, but no, you get this weird fantasy sequence at the end where you don't know whether or not you're in the mind of Al Capone or if he's seeing things, where he is at that present time. Too much is happening at the end, and it just distracts from everything. And Tom Hardy doesn't give a Hardy-esque performance either. Don't know if that was his idea for the accent or if it was Josh Trank's idea, but boy, did he really not sell me. And I didn't really feel convinced that he was Al Capone in this film. To be honest guys, I would have much rather Tom Hardy play a younger Al Capone before he got sent to prison. I think that might have been a better performance or even a better movie, but instead we get the latter, which is him on the decline of his mental health, and yeah, it just didn't work at all. Okay guys, so there you have it. That's my real review of Capone, originally titled Fonzo, so if you have trouble finding Capone, check out Fonzo. You'll find that on IMDb and every other website. And like I mentioned earlier, you can rent this movie too on Amazon Prime, at least I did. Prime Video has it for $6.99 currently, and I think originally it's a $9.99 rental, so it's not outrageous, but I don't feel like I got my money's worth. Again, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel, and tap on the bell right next to it just to stay up to date with notifications for reviews and reactions kind of like this. Go ahead and like this video, share it with your friends, and in the comments below, get loud guys. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And what do you think about watching Tom Hardy poop himself on camera? Interesting. Alrighty you guys, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.